All right, so strap in, folks.
Because today,
We are going deep.
into some seriously unsettling stuff.
I mean,
We're talking AI, and specifically our WE ready for what's coming.
our guide for this deep dive is Miles Brundage.
Now, he's a former OpenAI researcher.
Right.
He was literally the manager for AGI readiness
And then he quit.
to focus on AI policy independently.
Hmm.
And his public goodbye wasn't exactly sunshine and roses.
It was more like, a warning siren. So
Yeah, I think.
a lot of people perked up and took notice when he left.
Yeah, and what makes this deep dive even more interesting is that OpenAI's leadership didn't disagree with him.
Right.
They're basically admitting that.
We are not ready for what we're building.
Exactly. So that's
What makes it so fascinating, right? I mean, so Brundage is saying that
really none of the big players.
not OpenAI,
Yeah.
not anyone is truly ready for what they're building, and neither are we.
The public.
Right.
So the fact that OpenAI leadership doesn't disagree with that's pretty disturbing. Okay, so let's not sugarcoat this.
When Brundage says not ready,
What does that even mean?
well,
A lot of people think of AGI as this binary thing.
it's either here or it's not.
Right, like the Terminator, Skynet's going to wake up and we're all doomed.
But I think what Brundage is getting at is that it's more about understanding the stages.
Of AI development.
Okay.
So there's this framework,
Called the levels of AI.
and it's sort of like a ladder, right? You start at the bottom rung with,
Something like a chatbot, which
going to
can,
do a very narrow task,
and then you move up.
to things like reasoners,
Then agents?
then innovators, and then organizations.
Okay.
So think organizations is, almost like,
An AI that could run its own company.
whoa.
And so Brundage says we're somewhere between levels 2 and 3 right now.
So basically we've got AI that can act independently.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not quite at the level where it can design its own.
Super AI. Yet.
Yet.
And that's what makes me sweat, right? It's not just about where we are now, but it's where we're headed.
And how fast we're getting there.
Yeah, it's the pace of development that I think is really concerning to people.
Exactly.
And, to understand just how unprepared we are.
I think we need to go back and look at this blog post that Brundage wrote back in 2023,
Mm-hmm.
where he literally graded humanity.
On its AI governance. So our ability to manage
All this technology.
and let's just say he wasn't impressed.
Yeah.
I mean, he gave out a big fat F.
For societal resilience, and I think that's fair, right?
I mean, think about it. Deep fakes, scams, political manipulation.
Yeah, I mean, it's all powered by AI.
Powered by AI happening now.
Only going to get more sophisticated.
Harder to control. So
I want to ask you, the listener out there, right?
are we getting better at dealing with this stuff, or are we just falling further and further behind?
That's the question, isn't it? And I think it's,
We have to consider it from both sides.
are we actually developing these safeguards?
Or is it just getting worse?
Yeah. And it's not just the social chaos.
That AI could unleash, right?
Right.
Brundage is also really concerned.
About the economic fallout, so
He believes that AI could create this world
of cognitive haves and have-nots.
where your access to powerful AI tools.
Determines your wealth and your opportunities.
Right. And so the concern there is that
Those who have access to.
the best AI will be able to just, completely outperform everyone else.
Right. It's
A pretty bleak picture, right?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, imagine a world where the people who control the most powerful computers,
Control everyone else.
it kind of makes you think twice about.
That AI is going to solve all of our problems narrative.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's so important about what Brundage is saying.
He's not.
Throwing out these doomsday scenarios
He's saying, hey, we need to be realistic.
about the potential downsides of this technology
Right.
so that we can make sure we're mitigating those risks.
Exactly. And that's what
We're going to be diving into today.
in this deep dive. So stick with us.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really scary.
Is that Brundage thinks that this...
This future might not be that far off.
He actually compares it to the movie WALL-E.
Oh, wow.
This
world where we become so reliant on technology,
that we lose our drive, our creativity.
even our basic physical abilities.
I know it sounds like science fiction.
But can you honestly say it's impossible?
I mean, it does feel like
We're getting a little bit lazier.
as all this technology comes out,
Yeah, I mean, just look around.
people are constantly glued to their phones
They're, ordering
to
food.
be delivered to their door.
They're not even interacting with each other face to face anymore.
Oh, okay, so.
I'm officially feeling a little uneasy.
But here's the thing.
Brundage isn't just sitting around.
Doom scrolling about the AI apocalypse.
He's actually trying to do something about it.
Right, so he's...
Put his money where his mouth is, so to speak.
He left OpenAI
To focus specifically on AI policy.
So how do we steer this train before it crashes and burns?
Exactly. And what's interesting is that
He's not just calling for more regulation.
he's saying we need to rethink our entire approach to
AI development. So starting with what he calls frontier AI safety.
frontier AI safety. So
What does that even mean?
it means we need to think about the potential risks
Of these extremely powerful AI systems.
before they even exist.
So before they're even built.
Yeah, because once they're out there.
It might be too late.
Okay, so
If dozens of companies will soon have...
AI capable of causing catastrophic damage.
How do we even regulate that?
Right. I mean, it's like,
Trying to put a leash on a hurricane?
yeah, I mean, it's moving
It's so fast. It's evolving.
so quickly. How do you even...
And then on top of that,
You have this issue of,
compute governance.
which sounds very sci-fi.
It does, yeah.
Sounds very cyberpunk.
But it's actually central to Brundage's argument.
He's saying that whoever controls
The most powerful computers.
will basically control the future.
I mean, and he's not wrong.
Right now, that power is concentrated in the hands.
Of a very few corporations and governments.
Exactly.
And so that raises a question.
Is that the future we want?
That's a good question.
Right. A future where
Just a handful of tech giants and governments.
hold the keys to this.
Incredibly powerful technology.
And if not,
What are we going to do about it?
so
I like that Brundage is...
at least sounding the alarm
He's urging,
for immediate action.
especially when it comes to AI safety and security.
He's saying that we're basically sleepwalking into disaster.
And he even makes this...
Comparison to COVID-19.
Yeah, he draws...
It's a really chilling comparison to our lack of preparedness.
For COVID-19.
Right, we were warned.
The experts said, hey, a pandemic is coming.
But we didn't take it seriously enough.
And we paid the price.
And so he's arguing that.
AI could be even more devastating than a pandemic.
And this time?
We need to be ready.
Okay, so
What does being ready even look like?
that's a great question.
Because honestly,
I mean, this all feels so huge, so overwhelming.
it's easy to feel like our actions.
As individuals, don't even matter.
I think that's a common feeling.
And you know,
It's understandable to feel overwhelmed.
but I think what Brundage is trying to say,
Is that we can't just give up
we can't just throw our hands up.
and say, well, there's nothing we can do.
Right.
We have to try.
So what can we?
As individuals do to ensure...
That AI benefits all of humanity.
And not just the select few.
So one thing that Brundage talks about
Is the need for...
a shared understanding of the risks and benefits.
Of AI.
Okay.
We need to move beyond...
The hype and the fear-mongering.
And actually have a nuanced...
Informed conversation about the future we want to build.
So...
We need to become AI literate.
Exactly.
We need to understand how it works.
Think critically about...
how it's being used.
And who is actually benefiting.
Yeah. So we need to be able to ask...
The right questions, right?
Like what?
So, for example, what values are we embedding?
In these systems.
Who is profiting?
Who is being left behind?
How do we ensure that AI...
Is used for good and not for harm.
Yeah, and these aren't just...
Questions for the tech company.
To answer or the governments to answer.
And for all of us, right?
These are questions for everyone.
Because AI is impacting our lives.
In countless ways already.
And that influence
Is only going to grow.
Okay, so
You're at a crossroad.
I think that's a good way to put it.
You have this...
Incredibly powerful technology.
With the potential to solve.
Some of humanity's biggest challenges.
But also the potential to create.
New and even more daunting problems.
Right.
And the path we choose now
Will determine the kind of future.
that we create.
And so Brundage's message is clear.
We have agency
We're not just passive passengers.
on this AI train,
We have the power to choose.
the direction we want to go in.
So what are we going to do about it?
I mean, it does feel like we are standing on the edge of something monumental.
This isn't just another,
Technological leap forward.
This is a turning point.
It feels that way, doesn't it?
In human history.
And what Brundage is urging us to do is wake up.
Yeah.
Wake up and recognize that we're not powerless
Recognize the power we have.
to shape the future.
Exactly. So he makes a good point.
When he says that, AI or AGI,
Benefiting all of humanity isn't a guarantee.
right, it requires deliberate choices,
From people in positions of power.
in government,
In business, in research.
and those choices need to be informed
By a public that understands what's at stake.
and demands a say in how this technology is developed.
So it's not just enough to...
Hope for the best.
We need to be actively pushing for...
AI that aligns with our values, our goals as a society.
You got it.
Okay, so Brundage is arguing that
So AI just
electricity or modern medicine
needs to be guided by policies
that ensure its benefits.
as shared equitably.
Otherwise, we risk
Making existing inequality even worse.
in creating a world where only
It's privileged here.
reap the rewards.
That's right. And I think that's,
A really important point to consider because
we often get caught up
it's
in...
the excitement of the technology,
But we don't always think about...
the potential social and economic consequences.
Okay, so some good questions to ask ourselves are...
Who benefits from this?
Who's being left behind?
How do we ensure a just and equitable transition?
To an AI-powered future.
These are all great questions, and I think
That's what Brundage is calling for.
when he talks about
An overall AI grand strategy.
a grand strategy, what does that even look like?
Well, I think he's saying we need...
A bigger picture plan?
for how we as a species are going to navigate this.
Really uncharted territory.
So we need to be thinking beyond...
It's just like specific regulation.
or technical fixes.
Exactly.
We need a more...
fundamental vision.
for how AI fits into our future as humans.
Absolutely, and he challenges us to
Really grapple with some...
pretty profound questions.
How do we balance the benefits of...
Decentralized AI development with the need for safety and security?
what policies make sense?
If we can achieve global agreement on AI,
And what if we can?
that's the ideal pace of progress.
Considering the potential benefits.
And also the very real risks.
Right. I mean...
It's not like we can just stop progress.
Right. But we also...
There's a complex questions.
there are no easy answers.
And it really does feel like
we're being asked to step up to...
a new level of responsibility as a species.
Absolutely.
This isn't just,
figuring out the technical nuts and bolts of AI.
this is understanding the impact it's going to have.
On what it means to be human.
And that might be,
The most important takeaway here.
this isn't just a technical challenge.
It's a societal challenge.
It's a human challenge.
And it requires all of us to
Step up, engage in this conversation
demand better from our leaders and really, shape the future.
that we want to see.
So where do we go from here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
I mean, Miles Brundage believes that we can create a positive future with AI.
But it requires us to
Make those choices.
and take action now.
And those choices start now.
What role do you
Want to play in ensuring that...
AI benefits all of humanity?
That's a great question for everyone listening to ask themselves.
Yeah, and that's really what this deep dive has been all about, right?
We want you thinking about these issues, so...
We'll have links to Brundage's blog posts
more information about the levels of AI framework.
in the show notes.
The future is yet unwritten, but we have the power to influence it.
That's right.
Don't let this just be another...
Podcast episode you listen to and forget?
Take action.
Educate yourself.
Engage in the conversation.
The future of AI depends on it.